Hi everyone. Today we're going to go through the tremendous tax advantages of a trust named Intentionally Defective Grantor, or Grantor Trust like people call them. It has two tax components to it. The first side of it is that for estate tax purposes, the trust is irrevocable. So any asset placed inside of it are outside of the taxpayer, the grantor's estate. And any growth that takes place is also outside of the taxpayer's estate. So it's a good idea to put assets that have good growth potential into the trust. Now, for income tax purposes, it's defective. There's a very simple way of remembering that, and that is that for income tax purposes, the grantor and the grantor trust are the same tax person. So, for example, there's no capital gains when an asset is sold into the trust. It's you can't sell something to yourself. Now, moving right along, for income tax purposes, any asset or assets that generate income inside the trust is the responsibility of the grantor, not the trust. This is tantamount to giving the trust tax-free gifts. Now, there's also the possibility that the grantor can be given the right to substitute assets of equal value in and out of the trust. This is called basis exchanges, and it has tremendous planning consequences when used properly. And I'm going to go through that and deal with that at a later date. So let's take a look at how this is organized. The first thing we have to do to keep the IRS at bay is to seed the trust. It should be seeded with 10% of the total value that will ultimately go into the trust. And this way the IRS can stay out of our hair. Now, currently the grantor and spouse have $24 million of federal exemption, and that should be used. So at least some of it right away. And as the flowchart demonstrates, gifts can be made and should be made to the trust as soon as possible. Now also, aside from gifts to the trust, the grantor can also sell assets to the trust. And the consideration that the trust must give back is generally a promissory note backed by an installment sales sequence. Now, for many of the grantors, it gives them relief because some of them live on these assets. I guess many of them do. So now the interest rate and the number of years of payment can be adjusted accordingly so that the grantor is happy with the cash flow. These assets, whether gifted or sold, if the grantor owned a minority interest, they can be discounted. They can be discounted for something called minority interest and lack of marketability. You can get a 35 to 40% discount. Now that's very valuable and very important in case we're going to be packing the trust with lots of assets, so we get much more in. Now, at the death of the grantor, the trust begins paying taxes. Much more to follow. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.